If you're homeschooling, math feels like a daily battle. What happens to us is we get a little bit confused and we think things like, why is it my son or daughter who seems like they have going through hours and hours of hard, difficult math, I will watch that same child grind through a video game to get to the next level. I will watch that same child practice sports or a particular sporting skill for hours on end to get better and improve. They will struggle socially to fit in and go to all kinds of levels of effort just to fit in with friends. So sometimes our problem isn't about laziness because we'll think, well, those kids are lazy, but that's not usually it, and it's also not really about ability. So let's talk about a couple of things that are going on here that we see happening in maybe some other environments. So first of all, I want you to frame this, and maybe all of us need to frame this, is we need to kill the ability myth. The myth that our child avoids math or anything else hard because it's difficult or because they don't have the ability. That's usually the reframe we get is, and when we hear from parents all over the world, it's Johnny or Susie is not good at math. And whatever the subject is, Johnny or Susie is not, that's not their thing. They're not good at that. They're good over here. And we have this ability. There is an ability that they don't have, or a lack of ability, but it's not. It's not. It's not a work or ethic problem. Really, it's not an intelligence problem. Very often, it is not an intelligence problem. I'm just telling you. I work in the School of Engineering. We see kids come out of all kinds of environments with all kinds of background, and some will excel for unexplained reasons, right? Because technically they don't have the ability. It's not a motivation problem. Most kids don't even hate hard work. I just described to you some situations. Your kids will work really, really hard on things if for certain reasons, right? They hate, though, hard work, just like we do, hard work that feels pointless. So that's the first thing is I think we need to start killing that ability myth. And we do this all the time. We do it maybe as a self-protection mechanism or a societal protection mechanism that Johnny and Susie is not good at math. That's not where they're gifted, those kind of things. And I can throw any other kind of word in there. But that's not really what's happening. It's not even they're not good at football or basketball or swimming or any other type of activity. It's something else is going on. Now, some are going to be better than others, but we're talking about general ability. So number two, I want you to think about something. Peers change everything. Their peers, their friends. Think about where kids of any age willingly struggle. What will they struggle for? Right? They struggle on sports teams. And struggle, I mean, they work hard. They work hard to get better. They work hard to get better inside their friend groups, their social skills, video games. We see kids will work really, really hard at that. And sometimes in schools, and especially in some school settings, the kids will work hard. But they're probably not going to work hard at everything, but it depends on the school setting. So think about these are in what we would say these are environments. So progress is visible in these kind of environments. Standards are clear. Sports. When I say schools here, I'm talking about very strong schools. Now, I'm not necessarily pro on these schools. They have some downsides, but schools with very strong academic standards, and I don't mean just busy work, but true academic standards. It's hard to define, I know, because of the words I'm using, but there are some schools that the peers, just the other day somebody was telling me about, he went to a school, he was a C student. He was a C student, and he went to a school in a very high-end school, one of the top-rated schools in the nation, and suddenly it wasn't cool to not make good grades. He said the other school I was in, I was a nerd if I got good grades. On the new school, my peers were different, and maybe the parents were different too. Is in this point, it was not cool to not get good grades. If you were a student that wasn't excelling, you weren't in. So the peer pressure flipped him. He even told me, he said it wasn't the teachers, they might have been a little bit better. It wasn't the school, yeah, it was nicer, but that wasn't it. He said it was the peer pressure that changed. And I became from a C student to an A student just because of my peers. And that's what we look at with our kids is they will work hard at things for the approval, not of mom and dad, not of teachers. Yes, those things are important, but peers are super, super important. So people work harder when the effort moves them forward in a group that matters to them, right? Are we any different? Are we any different as parents? We work hard at things that we think that they help us to move forward in the church, in our communities. We work hard for those things that are important to the group. So that's a key thing to looking at what's going on in math skill. And I'm just let me take one step for a minute. As I look at, we talk about in the United States, math. In China and other countries around the world, they have this super high math skill. And the United States, we don't have. And we talk about what can the government do, what can funding do, what can better teachers do. Nothing. Nothing. It's the problem is in some of these other countries that we talk about who have very high scores, it's cool to the kids. It's expected that they will do well. What we see in our nation is moms and dads saying, yeah, math is hard. Nobody's good at math. Math is boring. Nobody uses math. What's it good for anyway? We see moms and dads saying that. It's reinforced in the culture. And so in our culture, in the United States, what's popular and what's cool, probably more sports. Probably excelling in something like a extracurricular activity is more important. So it's a peer issue. It's how our society and how our peers look at things. Now, that maybe sound really dramatic and devastating. What can you do? Move to another culture? Probably not the answer. But what can you do? The first thing is just recognize that's a lot of what's going on. Our kids aren't any dumber. They're not any less disciplined. It's just a matter of there is no motivation. And the motivation, me and you have a hard time putting it in. So let's think about number 3. What's different about math at home? Homeschooling math or small school math or whatever you want to call it. We have no peers or we have different peer groups. Oftentimes, friends aren't doing the same exact math. The comparison is they feel like it's A versus B. There's no shared standard. There's no visible sense that we are moving forward together. Now, moms, dads, don't get defensive here. I realize you have some standards, but their standards to you is different than their standards to their peers. Right? And it's true for us too, remember. Our standards at the job, our standards on things we're doing in the church, our standards in the things we're doing in community, we care a whole lot more about how our peers see us than we do about how the leaders or the people who set the standards see us. Right? That's what we care about. And you may say, well, that's bad. I don't think so. I think, it's human nature. There's a statement that people say, look at the 5 people you hang around and average their income, and that will be your income. Average how they talk, how they think, how they feel about things, that's where you will be. And if you look at peer groups, us as adults, we have peer groups. And you can look around and say, and people will say, if you want to be wealthier, hang around wealthier people. If you want to be around people who are more sincere and real and walk with Christ, hang around with people who walk with Christ. I think you can look biblically to see that's what Christ was doing with the disciples and the apostles. So math is, as we look at math, it's not weird at all that this is happening, because this is just normal. This is how we behave. Math or English or whatever other subject you're struggling with becomes an isolated thing. And when there's no pull, peer group pull, what we have is push. And parents or leaders or teachers start to try to push. More reminders, more encouragement, more pressure, and then math turns into a battleground, and substitute math for anything here, right? So the big reframe, number 4, the big reframe I think we have to think about as parents, as teachers, as leaders is how do we shift this? We have to reframe what we're thinking here. Your child may not be unmotivated. They're unpulled, right? Motivation is often an external force. I'm trying to motivate you to do something, but it's often external before it becomes internal. And what really makes this work is what's internal, what's driving us inside. So peers tend to create direction. Culture can create some momentum, the culture you hang around. So without that, effort feels like I'm just spinning my wheels. And that's how we all feel about things. And let's be clear, most of us as parents, when we were doing math or social studies or history or language, when we were in high school, we had the same feelings. Maybe we have the same feelings right now. So the question isn't really what's wrong with my child, it's what environment are they responding to? So just in close, and this is not a quick fix. I have no big giant solution for you here, or take this pill, drink this drink, or use this curriculum. It's not really about curriculum. It's not about teachers. It's about number one, expectations in the words we use. It's not that your child can't do math. It doesn't mean that you've even failed as a parent. Or that you failed in this area as a parent. It doesn't mean that math hasn't connected to meaning, momentum, it does mean math or whatever you're trying to teach hasn't connected. There's no momentum. There's no meaning. There's no peers or people. We know kids don't avoid hard things. That's not true. Matter of fact, they kind of excel and thrive at hard things. They want to be challenged. They want to be challenged in a way that their peers approve. They avoid hard things when they don't really see it helping them in any way. And once we see that, we can stop fighting. And that's the lens we need to start to work around, is what is the motivation? I can't push motivation. And by the way, when we get into the corporate world, these same skills don't work. I can't push people to do things. I can pull. And your peers can pull. What do we do with this as parents? I do think we have to ask questions about who are the peers. How do we create peer groups? How do we create a culture that expects more? How do we create a culture that they want to do more? I don't have any answers there, but I'm open to hear what you have to say. But start with, how do you see this? How do you think about it?